Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you teach economics, personal finance, or social studies, you already know that bridging the gap between dry textbook theory and real-world application is, well, it's notoriously tough. But the Federal Reserve has actually built this incredibly robust, entirely free educational ecosystem to help you do exactly that. So today, we're diving right in.
So let me ask you a question that pretty much every economics teacher faces when tackling complex macroeconomic topics. How in the world do you make something like the Federal Reserve's balance sheet genuinely engaging for a high schooler? I mean, it sounds dry as dust, right? But it absolutely doesn't have to be.
And this is exactly why the platform works. By educators, for educators. That's the motto of Federal Reserve Education, or FRE for short. They translate raw central bank data directly into ready-to-use standard-aligned lesson plans. And they really understand your classroom needs because, well, they've been there. These are experienced teachers building resources explicitly for you.
Here's our game plan for today. We're going to cover 1. Unlocking Federal Reserve Education. 2. Classroom tools and resources. 3. Explaining ample reserves. 4. The balance sheet broken down. 5. Teaching with economic data. And 6. Elevating your classroom.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Unlocking Federal Reserve Education.
Okay, so what exactly is this? Federal Reserve Education is a completely free, collaborative platform committed to making economic concepts accessible and empowering for learners of absolutely all ages. Whether you're teaching K-12, college, or even doing community outreach, this covers the whole shebang. We're talking fundamental economic principles like supply and demand, the specific role of the Fed, and super vital personal finance skills. It's literally a goldmine of ready-to-use tools that can save school districts thousands of dollars in curriculum costs, all geared toward building lifelong financial security.
Moving right along to Section 2, Classroom Tools and Resources.
We all know kids don't learn exactly the same way, right? So, whether your students get hooked by adventurous comic books about buy now, pay later financing, because hey, who knew central banking could have plot twists, or through interactive digital modules like the debit card journey, where they figure out how to avoid overdraft fees, FRE totally has you covered. They also feature this really cool Economist Spotlight series that introduces diverse, real-world economists analyzing data, plus full-on curriculums like Keys to Financial Success that are just ready to be deployed.
And the best part? The material seamlessly scales as your students level up. For middle schoolers, you might focus on foundational stuff, maybe using a lesson plan companion for a museum visit, or checking out how food deserts impact a local community. But as you scale up to high school and college, the rigor really ramps up. You get into advanced data analysis on inflation, or even participating in the highly competitive high school or college Fed challenge.
Okay, Section 3, Explaining Ample Reserves.
Let's actually put on our student hats for a second and look at an in-depth Page 1 economics lesson. The big takeaway here is understanding how the Fed transitioned to what's called an ample reserves regime. Now, in the past, you probably taught that the Fed used daily open market operations to shift the supply of reserves to change the federal funds rate. But today, they operate with a massive, ample level of reserves already sitting in the system. Because the reserves are so large, tiny daily fluctuations don't even budge the market-determined federal funds rate. Instead, the Fed controls short-term interest rates using its administered rates, like the interest on reserve balances. Just take a look at this chart. Notice how the vertical supply curve intersects the completely flat horizontal part of the demand curve. That flat section represents those administered rates acting basically as a floor. By seeing this visually, it clicks for students. To raise or lower the federal funds rate, the Fed doesn't have to awkwardly shift that vertical supply line left or right every single day. They just shift that flat demand floor up or down. It's an absolutely fantastic way to update how you teach monetary policy today.
Which naturally leads us to Section 4, the balance sheet broken down. This simplified ledger is just a beautiful way to break down the Fed's primary assets against its liabilities for your class. On the asset side, it's overwhelmingly U.S. Treasuries and agency mortgage-backed securities, totaling about $6.1 trillion in this example. And on the liability side, it boils down to three main things: currency in circulation, the Treasury General Account, or TGA, which is basically the government's checking account, and bank reserves.
But check this out. Notice how incredibly volatile that second liability, the Treasury General Account, can be? The government's checking account doesn't just sit still. Depending on massive tax inflows around mid-April or huge outflows for things like defense spending, the TGA swings up and down by an average of $57 billion every single week. The real aha moment for students here is realizing that when the TGA goes up, Bank reserves literally have to go down to keep the entire balance sheet level.
To make this hyper-real for your students, the Fed breaks these complex transactions into simple 1, 2, 3 sequential steps. Let's say a household pays a $5,000 tax bill. The household's bank sends those reserves to the Fed. The Fed then credits the TGA, and the result? The TGA liability goes up, the bank reserve liability goes down by that exact same $5,000. But the total size of the balance sheet? It stays perfectly unchanged. It's just a brilliant way to trace the flow of money step by step.
All right, on to Section 5, Teaching with Economic Data. Say hello to FRED. That stands for Federal Reserve Economic Data, created by the St. Louis Fed. And wow, is this a powerhouse tool. It goes so far beyond just dumping dry numbers into a spreadsheet. It literally gives you over 72,000 economic data time series. This is exactly how you connect textbook theories about inflation, unemployment, or GDP to actual compelling economic data that updates in real time.
What's genuinely fascinating here is how hands-on FRED is. You could have your students manipulate these 72,000 datasets to tell customized visual stories. They can build their own line, pie, or scatter plots. They can map data all the way down to their own local county using GeoFred. Plus, they can instantly modify the units, like taking raw GDP and just clicking a button to show percent change from a year ago. It lets students see exactly what real economists do, and it is a total game changer for quantitative writing assignments.
And finally, Section 6, Elevating Your Classroom.
Let's talk about the Econ Lowdown Teacher Portal. The onboarding process here is totally frictionless, proving how easily you can bring this tech to your students. You just register for a free account, create a digital classroom, and literally drag and drop resources, like those interactive modules we talked about, right into a custom syllabus. It's like a giant puzzle you piece together. Your students log in with their codes, do the work, and the management panel automatically tracks and grades their progress.
But hey, it's not just about the students, right? To keep your own skills incredibly sharp, the Fed offers a whole suite of professional development. You can hop onto virtual webinars to learn how to integrate these tools into your specific LMS or join their top 10 lessons events. And if you prefer working on your own time, they offer free, self-paced professional development certificates and even digital micro-credential badges issued through Credly to really showcase your economic expertise.
So, we've gone from comic books on credit all the way to 72,000 live economic data sets. The tools are literally right there waiting for you. If understanding money is the key to navigating the modern world, it leaves us with one massive question to consider for our own classrooms. How will you empower your community's financial future using these free tools? Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer, and happy teaching.